And now we're going. Going into ritual workshop, and I was laughing about this earlier today because I think the past 3 workshops I've started out by saying, I had a thought of what we were doing, and then Spirit came in and it's like, no, you're not doing it that way. There's no way whatsoever. And in this one, it was very interesting because Jan and I both were convinced that we knew exactly where the outline for this workshop was, which is not where it was, nor was it in the other place with files, nor in the first 3 computers that we looked through. It was in the Dropbox file that we don't even have the login for, and so there was that. What that means is Spirit wanted to update what comes through. And it's one of the things that is totally off topic, but I want to bring it in here because we learn a lot of different things, not just the topic that we're working on. I think that our spirituality is meant to evolve. I think that our awareness of Spirit is meant to grow and to shift and to change over time. I know that I don't believe the way that I did as I was brought up. I don't believe the way that I did when I first left the way that I was brought up. I probably don't truly believe the way I did a year ago. And that doesn't mean that everything's out the window or everything has changed, but it's all refined and there's a deeper perspective and a deeper understanding. And so I love how the universe sets you up for growth, because I'm like, oh, of course we've got this. Jan, we've got this. Yeah, we've got this. No, you don't. You're going to have to think. You're going to have to channel. You're going to have to bring through what we want to say instead of just regurgitating what was there. You can imagine what I want to say about organized religion after that statement. And so the idea of keeping things fresh and original and all of that and growing and evolving in our spiritual perspective and understanding is huge and giant and the point and what we're supposed to do. That being said, tapping into ritual, tapping into things that have been proven and are tried, and figuring out how to apply those to the new understandings, perspectives, or situations, that's the key to it. And so I first wanted to, define some terms. I always love it when, you go to a presentation and they're like, the Webster's Dictionary defines things as. Ritual really just means repetitive movements or motions. It's really just a series of steps that are followed over and over and over and over again. I guarantee you have far more of them in your life than you think. If you go outside of a circle like this, because we all come together with certain understanding and perspective, you out there and you say the word ritual and people freak out. Oh my God, we're skinning cats and killing virgins and all sorts of stuff, and it's just horrible. Feed the dragon and everything else. The idea of ritual is if you wet your toothbrush before you put toothpaste on it every single time, that's your ritual for brushing your teeth. If you do not wet that toothbrush and you put the toothpaste on it and brush your teeth, that's your ritual, and those are 2 totally different rituals that accomplish the same thing, clean teeth. And so as we get into ritual, we're really just looking at that repetitive quality. Now, most of us that come here, and I'm probably going to just do this the next time around on this, we could really refer to this as spellcasting 101. We could really just take this to magic class. I decided we're doing Harry Potter today. The reason for that, and I've given this lecture a lot of times, there is no difference between a Christian saying a prayer and a witch casting a spell, or anything in between. We are taking a thought, a desire, an expectation, we're combining it with divinity, and we're expecting an outcome and a change. I don't care how you dress it up, I don't care what you do, that's what it is. I think the Catholics are the only ones that say, yes, we embrace ritual, because they have the rituals, but I guarantee you, I grew up in a Baptist church, and guys with the candles walking down every single time, that's a ritual. We do a hymn at this time during the service, that's a ritual. We do it the same way, that's a ritual. And the reason that they do that, and the reason that we do it, is because it builds in a familiarity, it builds in I know what's going on, and that allows a buy-in energetically to it. When we're all there and we know that we're going to sing the hymn in church, and then next it's going to be the pastor telling us we're going to hell, we're going to feel a lot better about hearing about hell after we just sang and felt good. And so we build in that ritual to take it to a certain energy so that it's here. Now that energy carries over into the sermon and everything. We all know where that lands. And so we want to think about in the rituals we're doing here that we have a purpose, and that we're really tapping into the collective consciousness and the idea that many, many, many millions, billions, ever how many people have put that belief in the thing all along. Where do we wear a wedding ring? Left hand. Why do we all know that? That's the ritual. Why do we exchange vows? Why is there the I do? Why, after living together for 5 years, we finally get married and that guy gets to tell us we can now kiss them? Because that's the ritual. Because that's the way that we have evolved from it. And then we get to the point where elements of that ritual hang on and parts of it fade away. You'll see weddings becoming far more non-traditional now. You'll see people going through different rituals for divorces. The divorce party is a giant thing these days. Let's celebrate that ending of everything. There's now a ritual that's coming into the ending of it. We can look at those as everyday things. I would consider those to be celebration rituals, or what we might call a rite of passage. Happy birthday to you, now blow out the candle. That's a ritual. And we're doing that because we believe, or we at least tell each other we believe, that if you hold that thought, everybody's there wishing you well, we sing to you and build that energy, which we'll see why that matters in a minute, and then you blow out that candle with a wish, your wish is going to be granted. And so that is a pretty pagan magic spell that's right there. Let's make baked goods, put fire on it, everybody set an intention, gather around in a circle and let this thing rip. I've seen a lot less put into spells out of covens. And so I think we've got to get to the point where we're acknowledging what it is we're actually doing here. So our rite of passage, the graduation, tassel goes from here over to here. Now you're somebody else. That moment is a ritual of rite of passage, of progressing, of moving on. And so whenever we're at a moment in our life where we've got some major thing going on, you've been at the same career forever and worked at a place for a very long time and it's time to leave there. You might decide to have a rite of passage ritual to create an energetic archway so that you could step out of the life that you were in into the new life that you're creating for yourself. And it gives you a way to place an ending and a beginning. Period at the end of that sentence, beginning at the front of this one. And if we allow ourselves to begin to build in those rituals, and this is where we got to define our terms a little bit more. I'm going to say ritual over and over and over. That one isn't necessarily a repetition of something that other people have done before. And so the reason I'm calling it a ritual instead of a ceremony, which would be a much more appropriate term, is because we're putting an intention and an expectation. A ceremony is simply a celebration. A ceremony is just to cheer on, validate, celebrate whatever's already occurred. The ritual part, even if it's not, well, a lot of people create this energetic archway walkthrough. Even if that's a new thing, even if you put together the elements of what that looks like totally yourself, make it up in a vacuum, nobody else even knows what you're doing, you're approaching it ritualistically. The steps have meaning, the progression has meaning, everything I bring into it has meaning. This symbolizes this, and this, and this, and I start here, and it takes me over here, I'm at a different place. And so it's ritual in its format, it's ritual in its structure. And so that would be for our celebrations, that's for our rite of passages, that sort of thing. Another type that we have is a devotional. And you will see that, every church service anywhere, every religious gathering, there's a devotional quality to it. You're in a yoga studio. One of the ones that we have here, this is called a Shiva Lingam. This comes from the Narmada River in India. It represents the Lord Shiva to the Hindus, and it is the physical embodiment of the omnipresent but intangible God. Sounds like Holy Spirit to me. But if you get into the idea of having a symbol that we use to connect with it, the moment of connecting with that symbol and it having a meaning is the ritual itself. That's a rock. The Shivite priests go out when the river's low enough and they gather the rocks that are formed into that rough shape because of a meteor striking the river. They take the silt and the sand and they polish it with prayers and all of this sort of stuff, and they bring it back and they make it into a sacred object. Still a rock, polished rock. The minute that somebody, now it's a sacred object. Now it's become a ritual piece. One of the ones I love about this, Jan was there, I think it was the one from the house actually, but the Shiva Lingam, it's hard to see on this one. I may have it upside down. Can you see this little darker part? It's slightly darker at the top. The one at home's gray and red. Slightly darker here. This actually represents a phallic symbol. This is the male aspect of creation. And that black cap is to represent that there's no divine masculine without feminine. There's no divine feminine without masculine. And so this becomes the embodiment of the union of the god, goddess, all of this sort of stuff. We were at a yoga festival, and We did it's called a Shiva Puja. It's a celebration. It's a ritual of devotion to that. And I'm not a Hindu. I'm not in anything. I'm a Shainist, 100%. We had people opening up their water bottles and offering a drink to the stone, just to represent giving back to the creative aspect of everything. We had, 30 people there that had never seen anything like this. Most of them didn't know who I was. What is this curious thing? It's hot out here. This is the one yoga thing where we don't have to sweat. Let's try it. And that meant they all brought a water bottle. And we're right there, and it's like, hey, let's do this. And people got into it, and people who were not Hindu, who don't care one bit about Hinduism, probably couldn't spell Shiva if they wanted to, got into the idea of we're connecting with the divine, we're showing respect, we're showing a bowing, an acceptance, we're celebrating that thing, whatever it is that we might call it. And you see people doing that spontaneously because it's built into us to participate in that sort of thing because it fulfills us. If birthday parties weren't fun, nobody'd have them. If graduation ceremonies, everybody's like, who cares if I graduated? Why would no, we dress up, we invite our friends, we send out invitations, we expect gifts, we do all sorts of things because it's built up in that way. Why would we do that for the 1-year-old's birthday party that isn't even going to remember it, and not do it for what we consider to be the divine creative aspect of the entire universe? You know, they gave us all birth. And so we need to think about bringing all these different parts in and seeing there's many, many different ways of going about it. So that would be devotional. A devotional one, this one's very dear to me. I do this regularly, and I think it's funny because I always talk about how all my ancestors hate me. All my dead folk hate me. But at my house on major holidays, we set a plate for those who have gone before. Jan's over at the house a lot. She's seen me do this many times. I think we're all familiar with let's pour one out. You know, we're all going to have a drink. Let's pour one out for the people we've lost. That's a ritual of devotion. That when we go to the graveside and we sit there by a chunk of rock with their name on it, because that's the only part of them that's there, that is us, well, probably not. They probably meet you there, but that's what actually happens, is they're meeting you there. But in that moment, we're having a devotion to those people that we lost. We are celebrating the life, the connection, the thing that we shared. And in that moment, we've stepped into a ritual without even knowing it. We all think, I'm just going to the cemetery to see my grandma. You're doing the thing that millions of people do all the time for the same reason. That's a ritual. It's a ritual of devotion that you're practicing. And so the reason I keep going back to these everyday, really simple examples is because ritual doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be complicated. We hear ritual and we think, swinging the censer of incense and the people in the costumes coming, and then there's the people with the candles, and then there's all of this. Now we're going to speak in another language, and we're going to do 17 other things, stand up, sit down, bow. We don't have to do all of that. We can, and it's fun if we do, but we don't have to. We can keep them very simple. The fact that I have one of these, I have one of these of various sizes everywhere. I have one in my office, I have one at home, I have one, all over the place. I carry one in my bag, and it's because it means something to me. It genuinely does. And if I'm having a moment that I want to feel connection, whichever one's closest, I'll really just have a moment and be fine. That was it. That was the ritual. But that moment, I've done that enough times that that's all it takes. I talk about, those of you who practice yoga with me, Jan gets the gold star. I don't know about the other ones here. Oh, you get double points because I was bad.
I was here one day.
You did, good. And you? No, the reason that I bring up yoga, every time, you'll hear me say this in class, every time my yoga mat's usually right here, every time I step onto it, I shift energy. Talk about when you come in, you shift energy coming into that place. The act of coming in here, you've learned to let go of everything out there. When I step on my mat, I shift it. That's a ritual. We have a rite of passage, leaving our everyday life and stepping into a sacred space. And in stepping into that sacred space, we performed a ritual of separating ourselves from the everyday world. And we placed ourselves in a different energy. That's a rite of passage. When you get in here, keeping the yoga theme going, when you get in here and you have that great, wow, my warrior looked great today, or I touched my toes for the first time, or my crow flew, or whatever it is. You have that moment and you come up out of it and you look like that. That's celebration. And in this studio, we all stop and applaud for somebody. That's become the ritual. Because that ritual is celebrating, it's devotional to that person that just achieved the pose that they wanted to achieve. It's the person that, we also celebrate this when people are like, not that crazy shit you're doing, and they decide to, we celebrate that too. The other one that I think is more the reason we're all here is what I would call an intentional ritual. This is where we want an outcome. This is spellcasting 101. This is where we're going to take all sorts of things and combine them together with intent and purpose and focus and build energy and drive it and all of this sort of stuff so that we actually make something happen in the world. And one of the things that you'll see in all of my workshops, or I hope it comes across in all my workshops, I'm going to be using various different tools as examples here today. And I want you to see how they could be used in a number of different ways. This was the first one that I referenced. That can be a purely devotional thing where you do a Shiva Lingam Puja, where whatever you consider God to be, you could do it with a crucifix, you could do it with a rosary, you could do it with a statue of Buddha, you could do it with anything that you wanted to. It doesn't matter what faith, let's not get hung up on all that. We could have a devotional thing there. There's another form of devotion that we could do there. The mala. This is a mala for prayer. This is a mala as a garland of flowers. We could take these and we could offer around. We probably wouldn't have our coffee for that, but we could offer that around because we wanted to show the beauty that comes in. We're devotional in that regard. I showed you just a minute ago where I look at that purely selfishly. I need help. Hook me up. Give me my little click so I can get there. That's an intentional use of that exact same thing. I might use it in my rite of passage so that I'm standing here representing the life that I'm in, and I have it over there representing the place that I'm going to because it's a very physical representation of the energetic thing that I want to happen in my world. I call them placeholders. So that I can literally walk from here to that and place my hands on the thing that represents that new reality. I've just shown you 3 different ways, each one of these different versions I'm telling you about. Devotional, rite of passage, and intentional with the same object. You can combine those as well. When we do yoga teacher training around here, this is from graduation. This is from the very first round of teacher training that I ever did. We end up sitting here. I'm sitting cross-legged. This is right here between us. There's a bolster. The student comes up, sits down after they've completed the course, and we take this, and I drape it around their neck, and I tell them that they are no longer a student because a teacher sits in front of me. And that is our rite of passage. That's what we do all the time. But in that, we start with the devotional because we don't do yoga to touch our toes. We do yoga to be better people. And so it's supposed to affect all of our lives. So we start out with all of our lives, rite of passage, then we go directly into celebration about the whole thing. So all of these things should flow one into another. They should all work together. And you'll hear me say this about every topic ever, and it really kind of puts me out of the need to even give workshops. What you mean is what it is. We're done. See you later. What you mean is what it is. Did I get that ritual right? Did it feel good? Then you did it right. Did it feel bad? Why? And it won't be because of the ritual, it'll be because of the reason you did it. It'll be because you realize, that's me just being selfish, or I didn't really mean it, or look how insincere, or whatever. And we all have to be honest enough that we do that at times. I know that I've sat through way too many sermons that I was not invested in. Why did I sit through them then? It's not a question of that. It's a question of why would I stay there if I'm not going to be invested. I like talking about rain dances. Rain dances are a fun one. Don't know why I didn't do one earlier this year. It was really dry and hot for a long time. Slacker. The reason that a rain dance works, the reason that any of this works, is because everything is energy. Can we all just agree to that real simply? Everything is energy. That's even scientific. All energy If we go back to Einstein, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. That's science fact. We're talking physics here. We're not in the airy-fairy at all yet. If that's true, and we see that everything ultimately does change, there's nothing in existence that remains in its form forever. The sun will eventually burn out. The entire solar system will be consumed by a black hole eventually. We won't see it, at least not from this perspective, but it's going to happen. Everything has a shelf life. So if everything changes, everything is transformable, then we know that everything is transformable. Nothing's stuck the way it is. We know for a fact that if everything is made of energy, that we can change anything that exists if we can apply enough energy to it to make it change. So why in the hell aren't we all winning the lottery? Because everybody believes they're going to win the damn lottery. You don't believe it more than them. Why do you all stick to the ground? Because you don't believe more than 7 billion people that gravity is fake. Why do we all die? Everybody's bought into the program. If you actually believed more than the collective consciousness that you could fly, you would leave your car here when you left. I'm going to challenge you that you don't have that much belief. We'll see. One of you flies home. Next workshop's on me. I'm looking at you, Jan Baker. Now, the reason that we're talking about the energy, and I started that with the idea of a rain dance, is because it's actually the dance that matters, not the steps, the dancing. Because in everything that we do for an intention, rain dance would be very intentional. We're not celebrating the drought. I guess it could be a rite of passage from everybody dying to having a drink of water, but it's much more of an intentional kind of thing that we're doing. So the shaman comes out, dressed in furs and bells and rattles, faces painted, comes out dancing around, people drumming like crazy, fire going over here, get everybody up dancing around, all this energy. When it's all right up here, the shaman goes, rain. And all of that energy gets shoved into one thought. Not just a thought, an emotional thought. Thoughts are this big. Thoughts create reality. Emotions are this big. If you don't believe me, next time you get overly emotional, let me know how much your reasoning mind wins out. I'm going to bet you do what your emotional self tells you to do, and later you're going to wish you had done the other. That's what I usually do. So when we get to those emotions that are that much bigger, that's where the ritualistic part, what most people think ritual means. Most people think ritual is the dancing. The ritual is the purpose for the dance. And so when we get into that idea of building that energy, build, it doesn't matter how we do that. And there are a lot of ways, whole lot of ways. We're going to talk about a couple of them here real quick. What I think we're going to end up doing, I was tossing around in my head how I want to do this. I think I want to give you all the foundation, then we're going to go through a series of rituals. I wanted to kind of intersperse them through, but I think it's going to be better if we have the full understanding and then we go into it, because I want it to actually carry a punch when we do it. So the idea of building that energy, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of how we do that. One is breath practice. Fire breath. I'm building up that energy. This is me. I'm the whole ritual. I'm the tool. I'm the instrument. I'm the only thing that's being used here. I'm building up my personal energy, and then I might speak into existence what it is that I'm wanting to happen. Or I might validate that rite of passage, or I might speak what it is that I'm celebrating. Build up my personal energy that's there. Set an intention and then go to a yoga class, or go running, or go to the gym. Do an intention to get a negativity out of your life and then clean your house and get the unwanted stuff out of your home. You're building an energy that matches what you're doing, and you're tying a thought or purpose in with it. Those are all very practical things. Let's get into the stuff that we care about and that's fun. Using energetic tools. Every faith in the world that I can think of uses fire in some way or another. Candles are very handy, manageable fire, but everybody's got their version of it. Catholics love their candles, Baptists have their candles, Hindus, Buddhists, they all love that fire stuff. Here's why I love it. If I place an intention on this, there is very clearly a metamorphosis that's happening on an energetic level. the physical substance of wax and string are being converted into light and heat. If that's not magic, I don't know what is. If that's not an energetic transformation, I don't know what is. Energy is not being destroyed, it's being transmuted into something else. So if I put my intention on this and light that candle, now it's going to hold that intention the entire time it burns. This is a 10-hour candle. If you're going to tell me that you can sit there and hold a singular thought for 10 hours on your own, don't bother to get a candle. If you can't, this is really handy, because every time you look at it, at least subconsciously, you're going to know why it's burning. In the back of your mind, you're not going to want to burn your house down. You're going to know what that candle's status is. Part of your mind's always going to be focused on that candle as long as it's going. You're not going to hold that much focus without it. And so the ritual of lighting the candle actually becomes a focal point, but it also is keeping that energy going the entire time. So I picked this one specifically for this demonstration. There's 5 of them up here. I picked this one because of the feathers. Do you see how much energy there is there? You can hear it, but you can see this energy. This is actually, personally, this is my favorite rattle because I've had this one the longest, and this was made for me by Henry, and it's not really it's nothing fancy, but this is the one I love. That one was a gift from Jan. That was a gift from a client. This is one of the very first ones I had with corn. It's made out of rawhide. You know, it's got feathers from my first bird and one of the other birds that we had for a while. I like this one for healing sessions and stuff because when I do healing, this is like way more information. When I do healing work, I close my eyes and I get really quiet. Let that settle in a second. People get really uncomfortable because they're used to me the way I am. And then I'm just like silent. Then when I get the rattle, and even when I'm healing, I'll be like this. Every now and then I'll look to make sure I'm not going to hit them in the face, but I do this. And one of the reasons I choose this one is I know that that's awkward enough that every now and then they're going to peak. And when they do, they're seeing the energetic movement. Yeah, they can hear it, but boy, you see something's happening right there. You can dial that up as far as you want to. That's a lot of energy. So when we have our intention or our focus, don't we do that at everything? Don't we play the music at the graduation ceremony so that everybody gets into the thing? We all know that we get to see the bride when the wedding march starts. We know that ritual, we know that ceremony, and the energy of the entire place shifts, and it becomes this different thing that we're doing in that moment. And so our energy, building the energy to sustain, to fuel the thing that we're doing, to try and push it out in that regard, there's a concept called gridding. That's what these crystals are. Crystals are put out in a certain pattern to create an axis of energy that's there to hold a specific energy that you place upon it while that's going on, and it lasts until you take the crystals out of that configuration. Another way to build energy. One of the best ones, it doesn't feel very energetic, but it works, affirmations. Sit and write the same thing that you want over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I was a valet for One Parkway Place. That's the condo downtown, and I'm talking 30 years ago. And I didn't want to be a valet anymore because I wanted to make more money, and I didn't like the rich people. And so I sat down at my little valet desk, and I would say probably 10,000 times, no shit, I wrote out, I now have a job with no direct supervision, working by myself with less than 10 people that I didn't even have to deal with. I wrote all this stuff out, working from 4 to midnight, making $1 an hour more than I did. I wrote every bit of that out, pages of it. My boss calls me one day and he goes, we're going to give you a promotion. We're going to make you a security guard. You're going to be in the office building now. You won't have a boss. You'll have a radio to talk to the head office. It'll be after hours. You're there because the cleaning crew's there, but they're going to be up in the building cleaning everything, so you won't be working directly with them. There's only 5 of them, so you'll be fine. We're going to give you $1 an hour raise. The hours are 3 to 11. Missed it by 1 hour. Like the entire thing that I'd written, missed it by 1 hour in the entire thing. The writing became a ritual itself. The act of doing it became the energy that I was pouring into it, and it all came out into being. And so the energy could be anything. That's why when you get into like the Sufis, God, if you don't know about Sufis, look up Sufis. Whirling dervishes, people spin around in those big dresses and everything. That's to build an energy. The dancing that is done is to build an energy. If you ever go to a powwow, that circle dance or the eagle dance or any of those have a very specific meaning and purpose, but underneath it, it's to build energy by gaining focus and getting an emotional investment. I could sit here as the shaman and go, rain. Nobody's going to put a whole lot into that. If I dance around and act like a fool and all of this sort of stuff, I'm going to be able to pull a whole lot of energy out of it. I may have just given away the entire secret to my success with my personality. I make a spectacle of myself all the time because people pay attention to me. And when people pay attention to me, I'm receiving all of that energy. Now I've got that much more energy that I can redirect back, and I've started this entire thing that's going on there. And that's why I'm able to connect with people the way I do. That's why I pride myself. Jan knows this. One of the things that we talk about regularly is rock star energy. The whole idea. Why do you think I dress the way I do? Why do you think I'm this loud? Why do you think I'm covered in tattoos? Mainly because I like them. Now I've used the thing I like, that it may be self-serving, I don't think anybody meets me without having an energetic experience. I don't think anybody meets anybody without an energetic experience. I think I leave one where people notice it. I hear it everywhere I go. I walk into a restaurant the second time I've ever been there and people are like, it's you! That happens all the time. Jan's been out with us when people are like, it's an hour wait. Come on back. It's not like I'm some big wealthy anything. I'm just nice. I carry an energy, and they're getting something, even if it's just a silly ha-ha or whatever. The place we're talking about, I'm pretty sure the reason they treat us that way is we're coming up on the anniversary. Scott and I sat in their bar and did the entire Rocky Horror soundtrack live to their jukebox once. They think we're awesome. That's a certain energy. Yeah, right. Oddly enough, it was very spontaneous after the second big beer, which created a certain energy that we felt was a celebratory ritual that turned into a thing. See how I did that?
But that scene just brought me back to college.
Right? So aside from the building energy, and we do this with anything that works for us. I'm talking about the everyday stuff. Cleaning your house is a ritual. We all have a way we clean our house. Because dear God, have somebody come over and help you clean your house and doesn't do it your way, you wish they didn't even come. Because we all have our way that we do stuff. Mine's chaotic. Oh, this cup belongs in the kitchen. Now I'm in the kitchen. No, wait a minute. This shirt belongs in the bathroom. Oh, now I'm in the bathroom. I'm cleaning the toilet. Except that the bleach is back in there. Now I'm doing whatever is here. That's my method. It's very slow, but man, you get a lot done by the end of it, except that there's no end. You know what makes that easier to accomplish? Some driving music in the background, something pumped up and going, something that's got you energetic, something that's feeding you in what you're doing, so that everyday ritual gets elevated because there's that energy that's there. How do these rock stars actually go and do 300 shows a year every single night and come out and blow people's faces off with it? Because they're not using their energy, they're using the crowd's. They're taking that energy and it's building them up and that emotion, and they're just reflecting it back. And in that moment, everybody's having that experience. And guess what? The musician's ritual worked. They sold the ticket and they're rich. Why do you think they're doing it? Yes, they're a musician. You can sing in your own basement. They're doing that because it gives them the life they want, and that's the ritual they use to manifest what they want. And I'm calling it a ritual because they don't put on a different show every night unless they're the Grateful Dead. They play their set. They play the stuff that's there. Even the ones that kind of freestyle it, there's a format to the way they freestyle it. That part shows up this time in the show. That shows up after we did all the ones that everybody knows. Or we intentionally do that and that becomes our ritual. But there's an entire practice there and it's very much for a purpose. Yeah, it's to make them rich. I mean, I think that a lot of them are sincere so people enjoy themselves and there's an entire experience and all that too. I don't think it's one-sided. But if we think that they're not doing it to get rich, all of those shows would be for charity. That's just real. It's a ritual to get what they want. It's also a ritual to give what they want. I cannot point fingers in that. A lot of the ceremonies we're going to do later, rituals we're going to get into, are directly from my soul retrieval process that I offer to people at a per pay basis because I know it helps them and I have to pay for my life and all of those things go together. But it's still a ritual and it's meant to benefit both of us. It benefits us in a very different way. Talking about focused intention, everything is made out of energy. Our intentions, I like to use the word expectations because I think intention's a little weak, but it's an energy too. And when we get into that, the ritual without expectation is worthless. Why would you paint your face and hop around and dance and scream and hoop and holler and not expect something to come out of it? Why would I dress the way I do, talk the way I do, act the way I do if it didn't get me the response that I wanted? I think that we know that human beings are very capable of acting outside of their personality if it gets them what they want. I decided to be my real self and expect people to give me what I want. Look how that worked out. Pretty good. And the idea of this is the focus matters. And if we're not focused, because the, what's the phrase? The degree of the question merits the degree of the answer. That's from me being a shaman, doing readings all this time. Am I going to inherit some money? Oh, hell yeah, I bet somebody gives you $5. Somebody tell you keep the change. Yeah, you're going to inherit some money. Am I going to inherit money from my rich uncle that told me I was actually kicked out of the will? Now that's a question that gets a specific answer. Is my grandmother going to die? Yeah. Is my grandmother going to die of the current disease in a relatively short time that's going to affect my life? Those are two entirely different questions. The first one is obvious. We're all going to die. The time frame, I had a client just yesterday, or day before, whenever it was, and it was great because she said something about, well, I bet you don't say that to everybody, because that's the running joke in my line of work. Oh, you say that to everybody. And she's like, I bet you don't say that to everybody. And I was like, no. And she had this weird look on her face. And I was like, okay, I don't understand. That was a compliment. What's the weird look about? All of that sort of stuff. And she was trying to get across that she's been to other readers, she's had other experiences, but there was an energetic exchange and she could see that there was a progression, and she didn't use the word ritual, she didn't use any of that. And she was talking about the focus that was held, and it was because she was in such a state that she was wanting to receive the stuff in the right way, and her expectation was that she would get the specific message and the thing that she needed in that way. So she did. And I was trying to get across, it's not just the quality of the reader, it's not just the quality of, I don't care how good a medical advice your doctor gives you, if you don't do it, it's probably not going to heal you. And so keeping the focus and having the reason why we're doing it and having that, what we expect out of it, is a very, very important thing. I have people come to me all the time or in passing, they'll be like, I want to do a ceremony, or can we do a ritual? For what? And it'll be this very vague, generalized thing. You know, like, I want out of my job. We don't need a ritual for that. Hot cup of coffee in the boss's face. You're out of a job. Quit. You know, you don't need a ritual for that. What you're telling me is you want a better opportunity to move towards. Yeah, that's what I want. Let's do a ritual for that. What does that mean? What is better? What would make it better for you? What would be more enjoyable? You're gonna have to give me some parameters here. That's not focused. That's just broad and crazy and out there, and you wouldn't even know if you were satisfied if it happened, because you don't even know what you're looking for. And so before we ever sit down to light a candle, shake a rattle, do any of the stuff, before we ever say a prayer, before we ever do anything, why are we doing it and what would it look like if it worked? This is the question out of everything. Write that down. What does it look like if it works? If you do not have a very, very clear answer to that question, put your toys away and sit down and meditate until you have an answer. This is to save you. This is not saying that what you do won't work. This is saying that it will work as wild magic with no direction and will manifest some crazy ass shit into your life that you don't want. I just want things to be different. Oh shit, now I've only got one arm. Well, you're different. It's like when people say, oh, I want to have a spiritual experience. Well, be possessed by a demon. That's a pretty spiritual experience. Die. There's nothing more spiritual than that. Shed this mortal coil. That sounds pretty spiritual. You got to define what you want. What does it look like when it works? I want the tumor gone. No, you want the cancer that's manifested as that particular tumor gone. You don't want that stuff still lurking in your body. You want the whole thing gone. So asking yourself, what's the focus? What's the point? What's the purpose? What am I actually doing this for is one of the biggest, most giant, important things that you're ever going to figure out with this. You know, this is such a sad one, especially with the commentary about student loans and everything that's going on right now. I'm a graduate. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Why did I just do that last 4 years? Why did I get this didn't get me anything? I don't have a job? Oh wow, I should have been doing that to get a job. And I should have known the job I wanted to get before I ever started doing that. I shouldn't have formed the ritual of daily classes. I shouldn't have formed the ritual of homework. I shouldn't have formed the ritual of investing the money. I shouldn't have informed myself that I was going to get something out of it with knowing what that something was. Now, I'm not saying going to college is bad. I'm not even saying taking out a loan to do it's bad. I think those practices are bullshit. But I think that getting into the idea of I'm going to college to get this degree because this is what I want to do with it. And when I'm this far in, I'm going to start securing the job so that when I get up to that rite of passage, I'm stepping into something instead of just stepping out of something. That's focus. That's an intention. That's a purpose. What does it look like when it works? I get a degree. No, what does it look like when it works? You get a job that pays for your life. That's what it should look like when it works. Most of them are just trying to get to graduation day. They're trying to get to the celebration ritual. They're not using it as a rite of passage ritual because they've not put the intention with the ritual. Well, that making sense? Are you following all those pieces? It's a really easy one to see with our school system because we're all thinking about that stuff right now. But I think that we can apply that to everything in our life. When I talk about my method of cleaning house, if you ever come over to my house, you're not going to go, wow, this is the cleanest house I've ever been in. You're going to notice, if you catch me when the one moment that all of that randomness actually ends somewhere, wow, the place looks amazing. Usually by the time I get to the last thing, oh shit, now there's something else here. We start over. Because that's the way my process works. If I had more of an intention of I'm just going to clean the bathroom, and this means this, this, and this, and cleaning the bathroom would mean this, 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 and this. Because let's take that down. I know it's a silly example, but when we say clean the bathroom, what do you mean? Do you mean wiping the counters and the sink and getting the mirror? Do you mean scrubbing the toilet? Do you mean getting back behind the toilet? Do you mean wiping down the wall? Are you going to do the shower while you're at it? You going to take the shower curtain and wash it too? What do you mean clean the bathroom? Because there's layers and levels and different things, and usually when we say we're going to clean the bathroom, we mean this one. When mom's coming to visit, we mean this one. And so what does it look like when it works? And if we can apply that, and I know it sounds silly, but if we can apply that to cleaning the bathroom, by the time we get to this stuff, we're going to be powerful, badass wizards coming into this thing. Because we've applied that level of intention to everything we do. I always refer to Jan because Jan knows me better than probably anybody. I'm this way about everything. There's a reason I do everything. I might not take the time to explain it to you. You might piss me off if you make me explain it. But there is a reason for everything I do, and there is an expectation of what happens because of what I do. All day long, Every fucking thing that comes up. You can look at that visual representation if you're questioning. And the reason that I'm so much that way is because I believe every single thing we do is a ritual of creation. Every single thing we do. Here we go, let's get biblical. To have a prayerful mind. What that actually means is to realize that every thought you have is a prayer that is going into creation and is becoming a potential outcome for your life. Every thought you have. Now let's take that the next step. What if we get into a looping thought where we're having the same thought over and over and over? Now we've created a ritual out of that thought. Now what if we have that thought that happens over and over in our mind and we feel a certain kind of way about it? Now we've got a ritual that's got emotion powered back behind it. Now what if every time we do that, we get a physical thing going? Now we've got an energy that we're building into that ritual and that expectation, that all of that. And then we're like, oh yeah, and I don't feel very good. And then we get to where that feeling not good is regular and all of that. And that becomes the expectation from the thought that we have that we put the emotion with, that's become the ritual, that's become the thing that we're manifesting. And then we wonder why our life stays that way. You just put a lot of energy into it being that way. You just clearly defined to the universe that that's the only expectation that you could ever have. That I don't have room for anything else. I'm in the middle of my shit. Universe is like, good? No, thank you. Too busy with this. No room in my thoughts for anything else. Why? Because it's become a ritual. So what you do there? You have a rite of passage ritual. I'm going to step out of that thought into another one. And you sit down and you write the new thought until it becomes the thing that repeats in your head. You want to know one of my favorite ones? I challenge clients to this all the time. It's very simple. All it requires is you, a mirror, and the willingness to do it enough until it works. Look yourself in the eye and say out loud, I love you. People will look at them and they go, how many times? Well, a minimum of 3 times a day. I'd prefer 30. How long? Until you randomly pass by a mirror or reflective surface and subconsciously say, I love you without thinking about it. That's when you can let it go. When the minute that you see your reflection, your immediate thought is, I love you. The minute you pass by that plate glass window, walking by the store, and you catch yourself and you stop, that's when you can quit the ritual. That's when you can stop all of that. You can let that go, because now you have shifted through that rite of passage into a different state of being. Because you just did that same thing, ritual, over and over and over and over and over. You did it with an intention. It became a rite of passage. Now it's worthy of a celebration. I would go home and I would throw myself a party because I did that. Next shot's on me because look at how much I love myself. It's a whole lot better than having one because you hate yourself. Oh, I know that hurt, didn't it? I just watched everybody go, The idea of focusing our intention leads us to a really, really big topic that's there. Do we do this alone? Or do we do this with other people? There's a couple different parts of that matter. When 2 or more are gathered, right? I kind of extend that out. Nobody said it was 2 or more people. This is a part of God, and so am I. We got 2 or more gathered right here. Part of creation. When we add consciousness, though, you don't add, you multiply. If we can get to the point where we're holding the same vibe and the same intention and the same expectation, did you hear how many qualifiers that was? Like exact same thing out of it. That's going to be not my energy plus hers, that's going to be my energy multiplied by hers. We add Cindy to it, now we're getting into exponential. Now we're Shane to the 3rd power. Bring Sam in, now we got this whole thing going. We get a couple more people, we got a freaking coven. The reason that they have that group of people is because there's power in numbers. You don't believe me? Look how many people there are in James River Church, and look how much they influence the politics, the money flow, and everything that happens in this town. You want to tell me there's not power in numbers? There's one person stands up in front of them and says this thing, and a lot of shit happens. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of power. Now, here's the problem that happens. Jan and I, of course, this is purely hypothetical. We've only been friends for about 10 years. This has never happened in real life. Sometimes our intentions, boy, they look alike. But what does it look like when it happens? Land over there. The conversation sounds the same. It's the same candle. But what does it look like when it works? There's nothing wrong with that, except we tried to do it together, and in that moment, we're playing tug of war with the energy. We're playing tug of war with the intention that's there. The other aspect of that, that's one part of involving other people. The other part of involving other people, or the multiplication is one aspect, the idea that can pull you to a different direction, are the two parts I'm wanting you to get. The problem that we have is that the more people that our intention expectation affects, the harder it is to manifest. If I perform a ritual for an outcome that only affects me, which is actually very few things if we're honest, only affects me, I can conjure that out of thin air, boom, no big deal. Absolutely doesn't affect anybody else. If I have an intention expectation that minimally affects other people, it's not going to be a hindrance. If I have one person that is involved that truly has a different expectation, now I'm dividing my energy by the number of people involved instead of multiplying it. So the key is shut up and do your stuff unless you know that person is totally in the same vibe as you. This is where we have the relationship portion of our conversation. Communication is a very important thing. My husband and I often have very, very matching intentions with very different expectations of what that looks like in the end. We're going to have a great night. We both have a different idea of what that great night is. It ends up not being a great night. That's because we didn't communicate that through enough. That's because we weren't sure of what the other one thought of was a good night. Or we didn't both follow in through that in the same way with the same integrity and put the same energy into it to allow it to land in the same place. These are all the components that matter. So whenever I'm working on something that I think really just influences me, I'll give you an example. And this is the fact that I'm going to share this with people. Talking about affirmations. If you're ever in one of my yoga classes and catch me in just the right mood, I'll go off on the lecture about how I don't see myself as physically fit. I don't see myself as physically capable because of the way I grew up. I was anorexically skinny, and then I was rather overweight, and at this point, I know intellectually I can do things with my body. There are videos, it's me, but I don't have that feeling that goes with it at all. And that started years ago. So at the same job, keep in mind I had a lot of free time. The security guard job that I was telling you about, I sat at a card table and read comic books. That was my job. There were other parts, but that was the bulk of my job. There were other things they thought I should be doing. I wrote an affirmation about I have a strong muscular body probably 1,000,000 times. And I wrote it because I didn't like myself. And so that was a negative energy that came in. Now keep in mind, I told you that was almost 30 years ago. That energy, all of the ritual, all of the stuff I put there, somehow went into escrow. Because I didn't become physically fit then. I actually got worse. I actually got in worse health. I got in worse physical shape. The whole time I'm writing this stuff, terrible choices, eating whatever, the burritos covered in nacho cheese and a Coke. It didn't matter. And then I hit a different point in my life and decided that I wanted to love myself into a different space. And every single thing I wrote down there became reality. And it's because the intention, the expectation, all of that's the lead up to tell you the secret part of that approach with me. I don't go to the gym with anybody. You can ask Jan, I teach very, very, very strong yoga classes. You will not feel like lacking for physicality in one of my yoga classes. We work out during yoga. I don't consider those my workout. My workout is either at the gym or at my home. I do not allow anybody else to be included in that. I don't want to be in a moment where anybody else could compliment or leave me questioning if they would compliment, or why did they compliment me before and not today. I don't want anybody saying, can you lift that much? Could you do this? I don't want anybody's opinion about what the hell I'm doing. I don't want anybody else's energy on what I'm trying to manifest and create here, because that is exclusively mine, because my body's nobody else's damn business. So in that moment, I keep it right in here. Now think about what I'm saying. I go to the gym with somebody else. A lot of people do this for motivation, and I have nothing against that. Do you? But if I go to the gym with somebody else, they're going to look at me and go, no, I don't want to do legs today. No, let's stay on the arms a little bit longer. No, I'm done with that. I'm going over here. Now they're pulling me away. And everybody's like, wow, we're having this talk. I thought you said Magic 101. You're talking about the gym. Yes, it's a place of personal transformation. It's a place where you go in and you take these things and you go through steps and you treat it ritualistically, and an outcome occurs. Going to the gym is very much a ritual. It has actually transformed one of the main elements in my life. And so we've got to get to the point where, again, if I were to do a team sport, I would not be able to make that what I needed. I would need to make it what the team needed. And that may or may not serve my personal intention or expectation. And so the more people that are involved, you want to start a business? The only good partner's a silent one. 49% is the maximum allowed to anyone else. Because otherwise, now you got to decide what they want. Now we agreed on everything, but we got to this one point, I want to take it over here. That's not where I want to go. Now we're dead in the water, because we're playing tug of war with that energy again. And so I think it's wonderful when we can multiply people together. I think it's best to do that on big ticket stuff that's really hard to have a different opinion about things. Like, I don't know, let's do a giant ritual about this whole student loan mess. We can all agree about that, can't we? And the ones that don't aren't invited, because their stuff would pull it to the other place. And if we can get it to something that simple, can we all agree on world peace? We could all do that ritual together, because everybody could agree that world peace would be a wonderful thing. The shit of it is, let's not have a conversation about what peace means or how we get there, because now we're going to have a different opinion. We're going to pull it all these different directions. So unless you trust them, unless you feel it, unless they are singing the next verse of your own song, leave them out of your rituals. Or keep them down to the celebratory, devotional ones. Because if somebody else worships God in a different way that I do, I don't have a problem with that. We're both worshiping God. If somebody else wants to enjoy nature, hey, you hike, I'll float. We'll both consider it a day out in nature. We're not conflicting in that way at all, because the generality of the spirit of what we're doing is the same. And so in the rites of passage, all of those people in graduation are going through the same rite of passage, and then out into all sorts of different places. That's fine. They don't have to match on that one. They're matching for the thing that's happening. When we're trying to intentionally create something, then we really, really need to match, because either we're multiplying or dividing the energy that we're putting into it. I love the line, asking versus commanding. I love this one. Moses is fleeing Pharaoh, and he gets to the Red Sea, and he says, if it's not too big of an imposition, could you please part and let my army through? No, there is no requesting. You command with divine right. You speak into existence what you want. You do not go, if I'm worthy. I am worthy. God, how long ago was that? I had somebody, you have to catch the spontaneity of the moment. I had somebody really preachy look at me and go, you fall short of the glory of the Lord. I was like, bitch, I am the glory of the Lord. And I mean, I didn't even stop to think. It was out. And I was like, well, okay, there, I just said that. Why wouldn't you feel that way about yourself? There's a soul inside of you, right? Connected to you, however that all works. I think it's more of a puppet thing, but whatever. If any part of you is a soul, and if any part of that soul is connected to what we call divinity, God, spirit, light, universe, whatever you want to call it, how are you not worthy? What part of you doesn't deserve And exactly why? Because if you're part of the creational force, that means you have the power to create. And nobody said what that had to be. I mean, some people do, but you shouldn't listen to them. So when we get into this idea of asking versus commanding, I have no problem with, nice prayer requesting something. I have no problem with lighting a candle, asking for a connection or a recognition. But I consider that more manners than anything else. I consider it as, this sounds crazy because we're talking about the universe, right? This is me versus the universe. No, it's me working with the universe. I think you should treat it like a really good boss that appreciates their employee. Would you put away the files for me, please? I'm asking. I just told you what to do. But you ask it because it's polite. Barb, who trained me years ago, she'd go, manners count even in the spirit world. So even when I'm saying command it, I'm not being Moses going, damn it, would you get out of the way, water? That's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about speaking with authority, or we could take it back to what we just talked about, speaking with expectation. There are a lot of times, Dan helps with everything around here. This place wouldn't exist except for all the stuff that she does. I don't always sit there and go, could I please ask you to take care of this one thing for me? Blah, blah, blah. I need you to do this. But at some point, I always try to take a moment and go, I appreciate what you do. Here's what I'm doing for you because of everything. We try to have a reciprocity that's there. But underneath that, she knows there's a respect. She knows that whether it's given as a question or whether it's a command or whatever, the energy behind it should feel the same. So whether you're commanding what happens or you're asking what happens, it should feel the same to you, even though they seem like total opposites. They seem like they're not the same at all. If you're saying to somebody, everything's inflection, right? Asking, would you please get out of my way? Would you please get out of my way? These are two very, very different energies. One of those was very commanding, even though it was in the form of a question. And so we want to think about the idea of this isn't about is one better than the other, is one right and the other one wrong. It's the energy behind it, the intention, and again, the expectation that we put on it. The way that we talk, I'm going to wear this part out, but if we ask somebody to do something and that's our normal way of doing it, that becomes our ritual of expectation. If we're used to commanding things to happen and expect something to come out of it, that's our ritualistic way of speaking into being what it is that we want. And it's the feeling behind it that is the energy that's driving it. Instead of having to get out my rattle and go, I wish Jan would put the files away. I wish Jan would put the files away. I wish Jan would put the files. Come on, Shiva Lingam, let her put the files away. Instead of that, I take the energy here and just actually say it, and then everything happens in that way. I think that chaos theory versus ceremonial is the next thing we need to get to, and then we're going to take a break and get into the fun part of today. High ceremonial magic, high ceremonial ritual, ceremonial. You need this particular stone that has been anointed with this particular oil, that is set in a blue dish under the moonlight on a Thursday, and recite these words, preferably in Latin, because that makes everything better. And you do this in this particular formulaic recipe kind of a way. And when I say recipe, I'm not talking cooking recipe, I'm talking baking recipe. If you know the difference, you'll understand what I mean. I can cook, I can't bake, because my cooking is, what's that meme I see all the time? When it comes to spices, I just start adding until the ancestors whispered, that's enough. That's how I measure. That doesn't work in baking. You end up with globs of goop or hockey pucks or very terrible, tragic things. So when we're talking about high ceremonial magic, I'll give you a great example of a 13-inch dual-sided dagger that is black is called an athame. And an athame is absolutely dull, will not cut anything, and is used as a ceremonial tool, much like a magic wand, to direct energy. A boline, used by the exact same person, is a white-handled, crescent moon-shaped knife that is used for cutting herbs, digging up roots, chopping things up, cutting your candle into pieces, cutting cloth, doing the actual work part of things. So you got two knives. One of them's used like a knife, the other one's not. Because they both have this different purpose, and they both have a very specific thing that it's meant to be. Every different wood has a property. Every different stone has a property. Every different thing has a thing, has a thing, has a thing. And dear God, I hope you have enough books, and I hope that thank God for the internet. Hope you find the right page that tells you the right thing, because the next one's going to tell you something different. It all gets very maddening to me. I'm not that structured. I'm not that particular. I'm not going to spend 6 months trying to find the particular cup that's supposed to make the thing work. I'm just not going to, because none of that means shit to me. And so it's not going to mean shit to the universe coming from me. Somebody that does invest in that, and it does mean something to them, and they're like, no, I needed the rattle with the turtle, and I finally have the turtle rattle. Great, now I can conjure that turtle totem. I'm going to be like, well, the damn guy's got ears. Who cares which one? That's the difference between chaos magic and high ceremonial. Chaos magic, I love me some chaos. Everything's shifting and changing anyway. Everything is constantly moving, shifting, changing. It's not going to be the same later as it is now. I'm going to give it a shove in the direction I want it to go. I'm going to give it a big old nudge with an expectation that it lands over there. It's going to change anyway. Everything evolves, everything changes, everything ends, everything begins again. It's the very fabric of the universe. So I'm just going to be a little pushy about the way that it goes. And I'm not going to worry about what I use. I know I keep referencing Jan. You should see when I get in the mood to do a big intention at the house. I'll have that moment, and it's almost like, Rain Man, you sort of, and then I need this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and I'm running in here and I'm doing that, and I'm grabbing this, I'm grabbing the other, and she doesn't ever do this, she just sort of watches, I think, most of the time, but it'll be, that's not what you used that for last time. Nope, that's what I'm using it for this time. Because that's what I'm placing the meaning on it for this time. I'm going to use this because it represents a never-ending circle, and it's going to show me the completion of everything that I'm doing. Next time I pick it up, no, I want what's happening to be more pretty and a more beautiful outcome, so I'm going to use this because it's pretty. And next time I'm going to use it because it was part of our graduation ceremony, and I'm trying to create a rite of passage, so I'm going to bring in something that's part of a rite of passage. It's the same fake flower thing that I bought off of Amazon in any one of those cases. It doesn't matter. It matters what I use it for. And so when we get down to that idea of those expectations, in chaos theory, use whatever you can. Now, I'm going to be very thorough about this part of it because I like being thorough about this part. I'm a chaos person. I also know what certain things mean. My smudge mix is made in a very specific way. I do my smudging in a very specific way. The elements and the components, the tools, everything that's there is the way I was taught, that was tradition, and that's because, not that I couldn't smudge on my own, I've made other smudge mixes actually. I made other blends. I've made them for different purposes at times. This one is the 7-direction smudge that I use. It's the one that I was gifted as a part of, and the reason I use it and all of it, the shell was given to me by another shaman who's now in spirit that represents water. The crystal was given to me by a good friend the last 5 days of her life as I sat in preparing her for the spirit world. The feathers are from the bird that's buried on my mother's property. All of this has meaning, meaning. And for me, it's had that same meaning for 40 years. And because it was gifted to me by an actual medicine woman, it goes back 1,000 years into the tribe. Yeah, I'm going to tap into all that goodness. And I'm not going to be so arrogant as to go, well, that doesn't have any purpose. I'll just do it my own way. Nothing wrong with doing it your own way. Have conviction. Expect it to work. It will if you do. It's a whole lot easier for me to have an expectation that that's going to work. It's not even my expectation I'm on. I'm counting on the idea that the Lakotas know what the hell they're doing. They seem to. So when we get into that idea, I embrace a lot of things. Shiva puja, I'll actually do a Shiva lingam puja. I will do yoga in its true form, which is a very ritualistic thing. Let's get on a mat, let's get in these same poses we do all the time, let's breathe the same way we do, let's have an expectation something good comes out of it. That's a ritual in and of itself. I blend the two in that one. We do very traditional yoga. I put my own twist on it, and we do creative vinyasa, and we do Shane style of things and all of that stays honoring of tradition and a little chaos thrown in. And so nothing says it has to be one or the other. You have somebody that gifts you with this amazing sacred object. There's nothing wrong with revering that object. There's nothing wrong with saying, this is my high ceremonial tool because that's the way it was given to me, or the meaning it had before, the purpose that it had before. I'm also not going to be afraid to use it for something else that I feel like it would work for. Smudge? I would be lying if I said that I've never burned it just because I wanted to use it as an incense. I have. I say my prayer, I do the stuff, I don't light it without all the stuff, but I don't always get it out to smudge something. Sometimes I just want that smell because it's one of the ones that I love that much. There's nothing wrong with that because it fulfills the intention. It gets rid of the negativity of not smelling what I want to, and it brings in the positivity of I'm smelling what I want to smell. It fulfills the expectation. Different ritual with the same substance. Real quick, because I'm going to run us out of time to get to our rituals. You need the tools. We've talked about some of them. The thing that generates the energy, the thing that holds the focus, the thing that narrows what that focus is, writing down the words of what you want, forming the image of what you want, finding a sympathetic object for what you want, turtle or whatever you're trying to do, figuring out how you're going to pour that energy in, what the expectation is, all the stuff that we've talked about there. Yes, the one that we've left out is, I talked about placeholders, but you'll notice this is a shadow board. It's got a Ouija board on one side, it's an intention board on the other. I made it myself, big long story. This is my shaman's bowl. The table itself, this is a massage table with an Indian blanket on it, right? Actually, technically I think it's a Mexican blanket. Gotta be proper. No, it's not, it's a sacred altar. Can you not see that? Can you not see the altar that's in front of you right now? These are all sacred objects that have very, very deep meaning. Most of these tools I've used for a very long time. And they all have their meaning for me. If I sit down with my shaman's bowl, this represents the female aspect of creation. Here's the womb. Here's the phallus. When we put the two together, we bring together masculine and feminine energies. And I'm always glad to be the gay guy in the room that tells people what happens when that occurs. We create things. Now, that might just be my cauldron of creation, my shaman's bowl of creation. It might become me. This bowl now represents me, and I'm going to go through my tarot deck, and I'm going to find this honor card because I feel like I've been a little shady lately, and I'd like to bring my honor back into things. So I'm going to place that honor inside. I'm going to take my candle and put on it to represent what's there. Here's my business card in case I forgot I was talking about myself. And now I'm going to charge all of that up because I've now literally placed those things inside of myself. This bowl becomes the placeholder for my own self. I put that in, bam, bam, bam. I expect all these symbols to become reality inside of me. And now I've given it a placeholder in the physical world. If I wanted to manifest that better job of sorts, this is the symbol of creation, masculine and feminine coming together. Please get the idea that that part's going to repeat over and over and over and over and over and over and over because it's how things work. I might take this board, put my resume in the middle of it, put the same Shiva lingam back on it, put the crystals around to say that I'm looking everywhere. It can come from any direction. Add my celebration to it because I know I'm going to be happy about getting that job. And I might add my prayer beads to it because I want to make sure that it answers all my prayers of everything that I wanted. Then I'm going to sit here and drum over this thing, and I'm going to expect the most amazing job position in the entire universe to come to me because I just told the universe what it looks like and I gave it a physical place to represent that I want it to happen in the physical world. If all we do, you have to be at a real expert level to have it here and just show up here. It happens. I do it a lot. I do it a lot better when I bring the stuff in because it emotionally involves me. My focus stays longer just putting the stuff together. My intention is stronger. And as I'm going through the parts, I have to make sure everything has meaning. That makes me sure of what the heck I'm doing. It keeps me focused on the intention. I can't just, here's what I want to happen, and now I'm straying off into whatever. No, in working with it, every single piece I put, every candle, every breath, every word, every rattle, every drum beat, everything is keeping me focused, building the energy, building the expectation, building all of it up so that we're actually getting what we want out of it in the end. So you got to have that placeholder that's there. As far as ritualistic tools, you can follow certain traditions. I'm a shaman. I take that term very seriously, but I actually prefer urban shaman. That's the latest one we've come up with. I used to say neo-shaman. I'm an urban shaman because I don't live in a teepee. I am not clubbing a buffalo in the head for supper. I am not making my own clothes. I'm not living in a tribe. You're going to book on my website. I'm going to talk to you on Zoom. We're going to meet in my office. There is an urban quality to what my shamanic practice fits into. What I do is very traditional. It's been around since as long as there have been people, there have been shamans. That's just a fact. Doing it in the way that I do, I feel more honest. Calling it urban shaman, I never called myself a shaman. The medicine woman of the Black Bear Clan did. But I adopted that after 20 years, and now it's evolved to being this urban thing because I think it actually fits better. I think it's more honest. I feel right when I say it. And I don't feel like it's cultural appropriation at all. That's why I feel like I can be a shaman with a bowl and a Shiva lingam and whatever other. Here we've got New Age spirituality. Here we've got Native American. Here we've got Hindu. And I don't know where the Ouija board falls in, but except for the really bad movie, I couldn't really tell you. The idea here is that if you have a particular tradition, if you are Welsh witch, if you are Zen Buddhist, if you are one of these, a lot of the practices are going to be prescribed and mandated and set out, and there are rituals that would fall more into high ceremony in my mind because they're telling you how to do it. Urban shaman, I grew up in the melting pot of America. All of my stuff's melted together. I practice everything. That's the reason I have a tattoo of Pan on my arm, because I'm a pantheist. I believe that everything is a thread in the tapestry that makes up what we call God. Everything. And that allows me to draw on everything to accomplish everything. A lot of chaos in that statement. Let's take a break, and then we're going to get into some rituals. Bathrooms there. We'll make it brief because we've got a small group. The next thing that I wanted to get into, which is, I always hope that people appreciate the educational part, and I try to bring in as much information as I possibly can. I'm one of those people that suffers from feeling like it's never enough, and if there's one little tiny thing I still know in my head, I'm like, oh God, you didn't tell them everything. We're going to shift into the active part of this, and I normally wouldn't do what we're getting ready to do. I want to go on record as saying that, and even for the people that are watching from home. The group that we have, I feel very comfortable in sharing this with. These ceremonies that we're getting ready to go through are the ceremonies that are involved in my soul retrieval process. And so this is like the big work that I do with people. This is the big shamanic practice work that I do with people. What I want you to understand, just because I'm very thorough, we're going through the ceremonial, ritualistic version of it. There is a lot more to soul retrieval that isn't what we're going to be doing here today, especially the shamanic journey, which is the whole thing that it leads up to. And I'm telling you that because if what we go through speaks to you in some way, read up on soul retrieval. I'm not trying to sales pitch you. Read up and see if it's something you need to look into for your own self. Or it may be that there's somebody in your world that you're like, oh wow, now I figured out what will help. And a lot of what we're going to go through would be, I don't know if I want to take it to that word, but there's a thing called the Great Rite, and the mock great rite. The mock great rite is where we take a bowl or a chalice that represents the feminine, we take a blade that represents the masculine, and we represent the consummation of those two things coming together. The great rite is where the high priest and high priestess strip down and actually do that do in the middle of the circle with everybody, and it's the actual physical sex act instead of the version of it. Even though it's not literally the same, this would be sort of the mock soul retrieval rituals, because we're not tying all the other parts into it that would be there. We're keeping just the ceremony. And while that part doesn't really matter for what we're doing, for me as a shaman that practices this, it does matter, so I needed to say that. And it's just it's a thing that actually matters in what we're doing, because I don't want anybody to think, oh wow, I just did that thing. No, we're doing these ceremonies. Now the cool part about the ceremonies, and I do want you to take this part, every one of these, when I'm saying mock, they're not mock rituals. The rituals will do exactly what it is that we're talking about. They have the exact purpose that I'm going to describe to you. They are not being threaded together with all the other stuff that connects it for the full practice that we do. So the three things that we're going to get into are A, the spirit calling, which we're going to actually stand up, we're all going to take a rattle, we're all going to do this together. We're all going to practice ritual today. And everybody that's at home, grab you a rattle, get something that'll work. I don't care if it's a wooden spoon and the lid of a pan, it doesn't matter. Something that makes noise. Clap your hands, it works. We often get out drumsticks and beat two drumsticks together. It doesn't matter what it is. We're all going to take up a rattle. I'm going to loan you guys rattles. We're all going to have a rattle. We're going to face the directions, and we're going to call to them, and I'm going to walk you all through it, and we're going to keep it very simple. I usually do a much more big, dramatic version of it. We're going to keep it simple because I'm going to ask you guys to join into the speaking part as well. So I'm going to be, repeat after me, boom, 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 shake your rattle, now let's look this way, and we're all going to go through that spirit calling, which is to call in the spirits, the people that help us, the loved ones, the animal totems, the angels, the spirit guides, the elementals, the messiahs, the ascended masters, all the good guys. We're going to ask anybody who's willing to help. I'll take all I can get. Then we're going to do a setting down of the stone ceremony. We're going to be using these wonderful red jaspers. I picked these because red jasper is known to be a shaman stone, and so we're going to use it. This is the one that I use. The idea of that ceremony when we get to it is we're going to take our stone, we're going to hold it, and we're going to give the stone everything that no longer serves us. All of my anger, all of my depression, all of my resentment, all of my sorrow, all of my traumas, all of the ugly things people have said to me, the stuff people said to me in yoga this morning that hurt my feelings, all of the mean stuff, because I'm a delicate wilting flower. And I'm going to take all of that and give it to the rock, and then I'm going to set the rock into the salt. The rock takes the ick from me, the salt takes the ick from the rock. I'm going to throw the salt out when we're done. And so you guys are going to take a stone, we're going to go through that together. You'll all put your little stone in there with that one. That'll be that. The idea is when you go home, find a stone. Now, I use this one here at home. I have a Civil War cannonball that I use because it's better than shooting it at somebody. I think that you should get a big heavy object. Heavy helps. And whenever you get stuck on something, take whatever you're stuck on, give it to the thing, and set it down and walk away from it. The reason it matters, and of course ritualistically, the more you do it, the more impact it has. If you do that, you're combining the two parts of your brain that are a thought, emotion, and an action. You know, like right now, Cindy is writing down, taking notes about what it is that I'm saying. And that will actually help her to remember it more because she's using her auditory part and she's using 2 or 3 different parts of her brain to be able to do that all at once. And that's going to make it seed into the brain in multiple places, and those cross-patch neurons are going to connect, and it's easier to bring up in the recall of the memory and has a bigger imprint on the subconscious, and I'm getting way nerdy here, but anyway, it's true. This is how it works. Not just a pretty face. When we do this, and we set that stone down, and we walk away from it, we're putting a physical action with the mental capacity. It seeds into the different parts of our mind, and that same whole thing happens, and it lets us actually walk away from the thing. Then when habitually, ritualistic, we start that looping thought in our mind again, we go pick it up again, we set it down again. And then when we're at work and we don't have our rock handy, don't know why you wouldn't take a rock to work, when we don't have one there, we mentally set it down and walk away from it. There's actually a really great ritual that has to do with going to the bathroom that I'm sure you can all fill in the parts for that. Let go of what no longer serves you and simply walk away from it. When I say that, it becomes really obvious, doesn't it?
I will never forget.
Right. That has seeded into my subconscious forever. And then the last thing that we're going to do is you guys are going to join me in what's called a gathering ceremony. And we're going to have to do that individually because it's the only way we can pull it off here, and I'll walk you through it. We'll all be just fine what we're doing. So if you two would take these. Rattle, rattle. Jane, you got yours? So for our gathering ceremony, we're all going to stand up. And I was about to come around there and get in the middle of everything. I'm going to stay here so that everybody that's watching tomorrow can see what I'm doing. Ideally, we would be in a circle. If we have a specific number of people, we might put 4 people at the 4 directions. We're not going to worry about any of that right now because we want everybody to be able to see what's going on. And so in that one, we're going to embrace chaos. If we wanted to embrace high ceremonial, I'd be like, okay, you're standing in the east, so you're the element of earth. I'm the element of fire because I'm in the south. You're water and you're air. And that's the way that'd be high ceremonial. We're going to be chaos. We can stand wherever the heck we want to and we know what we need because all elements are everywhere. And so we are going to start though by acknowledging them in a certain direction, not because it's the only place that element exists, but because that's the ritual that I've always done. It's the ritual that I was taught. It's the ritual that I've evolved into the way that I do it, the wording that I use, all of that sort of stuff. So it honors the tradition, but I'm doing it very much in my way. And trust me, you ever want to have fun, get with a whole group of different pagans. Get some Norse Asatru, get you a Celtic witch, get you a Buddhist, and get a Hindu, and say something like, air is in the north. That sounds like a really unoffensive commentary. And the Asatru will go, no, in our tradition, it's in the east. And the Welsh will say, no, in our tradition, it's in the south. And I will say, I don't care, we're in my studio, so it's in the north. And the reason that I'm even going into that is, who cares? The idea is that we're trying to honor and respect it, and we're building in a way. I would like for you to look at this as the means of interfacing with what we're doing, rather than this is some mystical whatever that, we're going to unlock that thing that's over there and nowhere else. Because that's not what it really is. We're just doing it in a ceremonial, ritualistic fashion. So we'll start by facing that way. Just let yourself acknowledge air. Whatever it means to you, maybe that's feathers or wind or breeze. It could be hurricanes, it could be birds flying, butterflies, it could be anything like that. Just allow yourself to think about the element of air. And a lot of times I like to sort of hold my hands up in that direction so that I'm honoring it or directing towards it, in this case sort of drawing it in. And I want you to repeat after me. To the north in the air, blow into our circle. To the north and the air, blow into our circle. Give us wings to rise above our problems. Give us wings to rise above our problems. Take us to a higher vantage point. Bless us with your gifts. To the north and air, blow into our circle. Rattle, 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 rattle. Fantastic. Now, and I want you to hear this. I know we're in the middle of a ritual, but we're teaching now. I want you to listen to this. I never knew how many. I just counted it. I always do 13, and I never knew that until this exact moment. And it's because I know what my ritual sounds like when I'm doing it. I've never counted it before. That's just educational. Now we turn to the right. Think about mountains and the earth. Think about the physical life that we live. Think about the trees. Think about the mountains. Think about the prairies. Think about the earth itself. All of the beautiful sand dunes, the beaches. Think about the forests, all of the earth. To the east in the earth, be within our circle.
To the east and the earth, be within our circle.
To the place where the sun shines upon us each new day, give us a new beginning. To the place where the sun shines upon us each new day, give us a new beginning. Hear what's in our head and hearts, and make it strong as stone and mighty as a mountain. To the east and earth, be within our circle now. Just because I do 13 doesn't mean you have to. Turning to the right. To the south and fire, burn within this circle.
To the south and fire, burn within this circle.
A white hot spiritual flame.
A white hot spiritual flame.
That chases away the shadows.
That chases away the shadows.
And illuminates the dark places.
And illuminates the dark places.
Burn away the negativity.
Burn away the negativity.
And be my guiding light.
Be my guiding light.
To the south and fire, burn within this circle now.
To the south and fire, burn within this circle now.
One more time. Think about the water. Think about the flowing. Think about the rivers, the oceans, lakes, the streams. Think about the dew and the rainfall. To the west and water, flow into our circle. Wash over us, making us clean.
Wash over us, making us clean.
Take us into the depths of our emotions,
Take us into the depths of our emotions,
our intuition, and our very soul.
our intuition, and our very soul.
Teach us to travel through life
Teach us to travel through life
with grace and ease, just as the river flows.
with grace and ease, just as the river flows.
Give us all that we need.
Give us all that we need.
To the west and water, flow into our circle now.
To the western water, flow into our circle now.
Then we would all turn back inward towards the center of our gathering, and I'm going to disappear. We come down to one knee. If coming down to a knee and getting back up is difficult, you just honor it however you want to. I always like to place one hand actually on the earth. I know that there's an empty space in the building beneath us. That doesn't matter. Earth Mother, we are your children.
For the mother, we are your children.
And we ask that you would rise up as a mother would
And we ask that you would rise up as a mother would,
to care for us and protect us,
to care for us and protect us,
to heal and to nurture us,
to heal and to nurture us,
to embrace and to love us,
to embrace and to love us,
and to give us your gifts.
and to give us your gifts.
Earth Mother, be with your children now.
Earth Mother, be with your children now.
And we stand. This is my favorite part because I think it looks very ritualistic. Sky Father,
Sky Father,
who we also come from and we will also return to.
we also come from those who return to.
Look down upon your children this day.
Down upon your children this day.
Give us your energy and your helpers.
Give us your energy and your helpers.
Guide us and protect us.
Guide us and protect us.
Show us our potential and lead us to it.
Show us our potential and lead us to it.
Sky Father, be with your children now.
Sky Father, be with your children now.
And then the seventh direction is within. And so in that moment, we just close our eyes and we go within, and this is where that question I've been talking about all day comes in. What does it look like if it works? We just called all of these amazing beings to help us. What is it we want them to help us with? Why did we call them? Why are we bothering them in this moment? And so this is where we settle and we think about what it looks like when it works. I'm not speaking what that is because it'll be different for all of us. Quite often in that moment would be where we would go into, and you'll hear the elements of what we just did. Grandmother, grandfather, spirits of the four winds, powers of the seven directions, archangels and angels, spirit guides and animal totems, ancestors and bright shining ones, ascended shamans, masters, yogis and gurus, illuminated spirits, one and all. Hear our prayer, be with us, and thank you. That is calling on all of those elements, all those powers that are represented, all of everything we just talked about, and then we named categories of helpers that we're actually calling on to be here so that we don't want to leave anybody out. And the reason that we're sure we didn't leave anybody out is we said all illuminated spirits. I had somebody ask me once, break that down, what does the thing mean? And we went through it all, and she goes, well, how do you know they're good ones? I said, we asked for the illuminated ones. We didn't ask for the dark, dingy, dirty, creepy ones. We asked for the illuminated spirits. We were very clear about what we wanted. And so we have that. And then in that moment, why wouldn't we be like, yes, thank you, we're here, I appreciate that, I acknowledge you, feel that, connect with it, get with it. Now, coming in a little bit, and again, if we can keep just this little lane kind of open here so that we can all see what we're doing, I want us to set our rattles down for just a second. And our next one is our setting down the stone. Now, I'm not going to use my stone. I'm going to leave this here because this is the part that I do while we do that ceremony. Because we've got to build the energy, right? And so we've created our placeholder for what we're doing. This is the ritual of releasing. I used to call it the forgiveness ceremony, and I like release a whole lot better because I don't care if I forgive you or not. I just want you out of my head. It's not going to matter if I forgive you or not if you're still judging on yourself. That's a pointless endeavor. Getting to the point where we release the stuff, and not just the people who have wronged us. I want to release my own negative thoughts. I want to release my own inhibitions. I want to release my fear. I want to release my stupid patterns that keep me from being the person that I could be. So we've set an intention. We've decided what the ritual is. Well, I haven't told you the full part. You're going to, I tell my clients this, while I am doing that, I will not be able to hear what you're saying, but you will be speaking because you're going to talk into that stone exactly what you're leaving behind today, what it is that you're releasing. If there's a fear, I release the fear of whatever. If you're angry at somebody, I release the anger I have for this person for this reason. We're going to get specific. We're going to say it. Nobody says you have to talk at the volume I do. You get tired eventually. You can whisper it. It's fine. But we want to say what it is. We're taking the sacred breath, which is our life force energy, we're taking our thought and we're combining them together. That's a ritual itself, which means you should be careful of every single thing you say. But we want to do that, and then we're going to place that here. I'm going to be putting the energy behind it that fuels this into more than holding a rock and throwing it in a bowl. Without that, that's all it is.
Do we put it in when we're done, or when you tell us to?
Oh, you're going to put it in when you feel done, because I'm not going to know when to quit drumming until everybody's rocks in the bowl.
You can say we have to speak.
We have 15 minutes left in the workshop.
Okay.
Please put them down. Oh God, I've had those. Trust me. I had one woman that got up and paced doing her stuff, and I honestly got to the point I was like, is she waiting for me to tell her to be done? And I got to the point where I was like, wow, you drum harder, you've kind of stopped, and it just kind of went on. It's okay if that's what works. Think about speaking it out loud, and keep in mind that we're not saying it to the rock. We're saying it to everybody we just asked to be here. These things aren't separate. We're saying this to everybody. We just spend all this time to ask every spirit that we know to be here. And we're going to do this in front of them. That means mean it. So when I start with the drum, you're going to just speak whatever it is, and then you're going to put it in there, and then we'll move on to the next part. Grandmother, grandfather, spirits of the four winds, Please see what has been spoken and done here. And we ask that by this ritual and this ceremony that you would free these people of everything that they choose to release. And we ask that you would fill that empty space that they've created within themselves and their life with something beautiful and light, fulfilling and enriching, something that matches their desire and their expectations. Aho wado, wantankasa. And so that is where we release everything that is necessary. So in the process, we've called in the helpers. We've now told them what it is that we're releasing and letting go of. That puts us to the point where normally at this point we'd have an energy work session, I would do the shamanic journey. What we're going to do here is taking it into the gathering ceremony that we would talk about with this. And so what I normally do with that is we clear these off. We take the bowl, and they barely fit around there with that. In fact, we may not be able to do the bowl today. So these stones represent your thoughts, because air and north represent thoughts. East is words. South, fire, is actions. West and water is our beliefs. And so we're actually going to do this individually because it's the only way it works. So we're going to take turns doing this. I'll be taking my rattle, building the energy, charging it, all of that sort of stuff. You're going to come up, and I'll walk you through it if we forget where we are. You're going to start here just like we did. We're going to complete our circle over and over and over again. And you're going to pick this one up and you're going to say, I reclaim my thoughts as my own. What that means is I'm not going to think what everybody else put in my head anymore. I'm not going to think what other people think I should. My thoughts coming from my highest self, my thoughts, nobody else's. That thing that I love joking about, yeah, I'm full of myself. It's just me in here. Then we put it in the bowl because the bowl's you. You're reclaiming that part. This is the gathering. I reclaim my words as my own. Not the bullshit stuff that I've learned to say because it makes people happy. Not the thing that gets people to smile and like me. The truth. What I actually truly believe. I am reclaiming my words. I might be reclaiming saying some of those words that people want to hear because I've become bitter and don't offer those anymore. I reclaim my words as my own. Goes in the thing. I reclaim my actions as my own. I'm no longer doing things just because it's what people expect of me. I don't care what society thinks my life should look like. I'm going to do me. You go over there and do you. I'm going to be right here and do me. Boom, in a bowl. Beliefs. I don't care what you believe about me. I don't care what bullshit beliefs church and society and my parents put in my head. I don't care about that ugly word that I grabbed hold of and allowed that to become what I believe about myself. I'm going back to what I believe. I am the glory of the Lord. I am the light. I am the shaman. I am Shane Knox, damn it. Then I reclaim myself as my own. You're going to pick the bowl up. Think about the symbology of all that. Think about at the end of a soul retrieval. We've spent over a month working together on this. We've built this energy up. We've taken it to this place. And this is the big cap at the end of it. This is the giant ceremony. And so this is intentional, and it's a rite of passage. And when you pick that bowl up, it's a celebration of everything that you've just gone through and all of that. So Sam, we're going to put you up here first. That's right. Get up. You get up here and grab yourself. And so,
Right here.
let's all be good shamans and help. Grab a rattle. Here, Cindy, don't get up. So when we all start in with the rattle, you're going to start with this one. It's going to be, I reclaim my thoughts as my own. I reclaim my words as my own. I reclaim my actions as my own. I reclaim my beliefs as my own. Don't run through it like that. Take a minute and mean it.
Do I say it out loud? Can I say it in my head?
You can say it in your head if you want to. I think that things have great power if you speak them out loud, but you should do what's comfortable for you. Always do you. So we're going to join in. We're doing the support energy.
I tend to get lost in myself.
It's okay. So this one is thoughts.
And my thoughts not control my life. But most of it does.
Your words.
And my words always
actions
May my actions be the right ones to be a leader in my job.
and your beliefs.
My beliefs, there's so many. May I follow the path that I feel is right for me.
And you're going to pick that bowl. I reclaim myself as my own.
I reclaim myself as my own.
Take a moment, think about what that would look like, feel like, be like, and then simply thank you, Spirit, and set it down.
Whoa, that was too much.
Fantastic. Cindy. I reclaim my thoughts, I reclaim my words, I reclaim my actions, I reclaim my beliefs.
Say it again.
I reclaim my thoughts as my own, I reclaim my words as my own, I reclaim my actions as my own, I reclaim my beliefs as my own. Thoughts. That's your thoughts. Thoughts. It's okay. We're learning.
I reclaim my thoughts as my own. No one else's. My own.
Words.
I reclaim my words as my own.
Actions.
I reclaim my actions as my own.
And beliefs.
I reclaim my beliefs as my own.
Pick that bowl up, think about what it looks like when it works, and say, I reclaim myself as my own.
I reclaim myself as my own.
And you can set that down with a thank you, Spirit.
Thank you, Spirit.
Fantastic.
I know, you even got the tears out of me.
Madam Baker. Let's all support Jan in what she's doing.
I reclaim my thoughts as my own. I reclaim my words as my own. I reclaim my actions as my own. I reclaim my beliefs as my own. I reclaim myself.
Fantastic. Now, you guys see, I heard the comments and you can feel it. You know, that's one of the things I love. We're here in a very deconstructed ritualistic ceremonial fashion. You know, we're teaching and I'm stopping and going, I shake my rattle this many times and we're talking through it and all that. I don't think that diminishes what we're doing at all. I think we all felt how little it diminished what we did at all. These were simplistic, quick, example level versions of what it did, and yet it stirred up emotions, right? And those emotions feel a certain way and there's a thing happening. And when we build up that energy, people don't get it when I explain it at first. This is a bowl I bought at Gordman's with crystals that I dug up myself and a rattle that Jan's sister got me at a garage sale for I think $2, you said.
Yes.
And yet, if we put an intention and we drive it with an energy and there's an expectation behind it and we put ceremony and ritual into it, those very simple little things. There's nothing high ceremonial about a garage sale rattle. And yet, there it was. There's that energy. There's that shift. There's that change. There is the expectation being fulfilled in the ritual that we did. And so I don't care if this is gravel out of your yard in a Tupperware bowl. I don't care if you're beating a wooden spoon on a pot. I don't care how you go about it. I don't care if you say, every time I do this, I'm connected to Spirit. And you keep doing that and keep believing that that's what it does and that becomes your ritual. You do that long enough, all you got to do is this, and you're connected. Getting to where we build ritual in, or more specifically recognizing that we already do ritual and starting to do it very intentionally, consciously, purposefully, we can actually take control of the energies of our life. We can direct it more to where we want to go. We realize that we have tools for anything that comes up. And that's because we can use anything as a tool for what comes up. And if we do it with a certain amount of reverence, I am irreverently reverent. I'll drop an F-bomb in the middle of my Sunday sermon and I don't give a shit, because I expect you to get the spirit that's behind what I'm saying. I am crude, I'm crass, I'm loud, I cuss. I always say like a sailor, but I've never been around a sailor. I don't know if they can keep up with me. I'm doubting it. But behind that, most people can see that I genuinely care. Most people can see that just because I don't dress it up in my Sunday best doesn't mean that I'm not giving that Sunday best 7 days a week, because that's what it should actually be. We should never step into our spirituality. We should have moments where we turn up the volume on the spirituality that already exists. We're not trying to be spiritual. We are inherently, innately born of spirituality. We are using steps and tools to express that spirituality out into the collective thing that we call this life. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate every single one of you. We'll let you know what's up next. Thanks a bunch.